Call the meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. It's the Town of Queensbury, the regular town board meeting tonight. Good evening, everybody. It's the Town of Queensbury. And I'm gonna mute yourself. I'm gonna mute myself here. No, I am muted. Okay. I'm gonna mute my laptop. There. And when I go to a public meeting, remind me to turn the laptop back on. All right, and it's May 18th, 2020. The time is about 7 p.m. And before we begin the regular agenda, if you would all please rise and join Councilperson Harrison Freer in saying the Pledge of Allegiance, that would be much appreciated.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for America.
To the republic for which it stands. We have to set a public hearing, and it deals with the sewage disposal variance. So we will need to move into the Queensbury Local Board of Health. And so is there a motion to move into the Queensbury Local Board of Health?
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson Brown.
Second.
Seconded by Councilperson Freer. All those in favor of moving into the Queensbury Local Board of Health, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. We're into the Queensbury Local Board of Health. Our first and only item, please, Rose.
This is a resolution setting a public hearing on sewage disposal variance application of James and Patricia Round.
All right, I see Tom Center's on, but I don't think we need anything from him today. This is to set a public hearing. It's for James and Patricia Round. They live on 34 Pershing Road. Their Elgin drain is in failure. What they would like to do, as designed by Tom Center, install a 10-foot by 40-foot storm absorption tank. And they would use the existing 1,000-gallon septic tank. And they're asking for 3 variances, and they are as follows. 2 foot from the northern property line in lieu of the required 10-foot setback. Second variance, 2 foot from the eastern property line in lieu of the required 10-foot setback. And third variance, 18 foot from the structure in lieu of the required 20-foot setback. This public hearing will be here on June 1st, Monday, June 1st, here at the Activity Center. And we plan on having all the modes of being here, which you're allowed to do, as long as you follow our rules, or remotely. So we have YouTube, we have a call-in. The number is 761-8225. You can only call in when I say you can call in. Or we have Zoom going tonight. So we got everything. So I can see who's come on, and Zoom does have an indicator. If you do have a question at the appropriate time, I will try and deal with that. Or you can call in your question or share your thoughts. All right? Any questions on setting the public hearing for this sewer variance application? Okay. May I have a motion to set this public hearing?
I'll make it.
Motion made by Councilperson Freer,
I'll second.
seconded by Councilperson Farrell. Roll call vote on this, please. Rose?
Councilperson Freer.
Yes.
Barone.
Yes.
Stroud.
Yes.
And Medevere.
Yes.
That's the only item we have for the local board of health. May I have a motion to move out of the local board of health, please?
So moved.
Moved by Councilperson Farrell,
Second.
seconded by Councilperson Medevere. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. It's unanimous. We're now out of the local board of health. We move on next to public hearings, and we have one public hearing tonight. And Rose, would you tell the public what that's about?
It's a public hearing on a local law to amend Queensbury Town Code by adding a new chapter 115 entitled Short-Term Rentals.
Okay. This is probably the lightest short-term rental laws. It's going to be too light for some and too heavy for others. However, let me tell you a little bit about our short-term rental laws. We wanted to have something that gave us some kind of a handle on short-term rentals, because not everybody is nice. It'd be nice if everybody was nice, but that's not the case. You have some very disruptive neighbors who are renting and having a hell of a good time, but the people next to that short-term rental also have the right to enjoy their property, and noise, disruption, rudeness, foul language, garbage, and other activities are inappropriate and do get in the way of the neighbors enjoying their property. All right, so we have definitions, and we have some standards. They're basic standards. There shall be one functioning smoke detector in each sleeping room, one functioning smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector in another centrally located room, one functioning and inspected fire extinguisher in the kitchen. Detectors must be in compliance with the New York State Property Maintenance Code. All exterior doors shall be operational. Passageways to such doors shall be freely accessible and unobstructed. Electrical systems shall be serviceable with no visible defects or unsafe conditions. Fireplaces, fireplace inserts, fuel burning heaters, furnaces shall be vented and properly installed, and so forth. Each sleeping room shall have an exterior exit that opens directly to the outside, or an emergency escape or rescue window, which meets current state and town building code requirements. Number of vehicles permitted overnight is 1.5 vehicles per bedroom, rounded to the next whole number. The number of bedrooms, you can determine that by going onto the town's website and looking at that property. It will tell you how many bedrooms in that property. Overnight, on-street parking is not allowed. Overnight, on-street parking is not allowed. On-street day parking shall not impede local residents or public free entrance or exit to the neighborhood. Common sense things. Another thing, it wants short-term rental owners to establish some rules and regulations. Common sense rules and regulations. The content and the intent of these rules and regulations is to assure public health, assure public safety, assure the general welfare, promote clean, wholesome, attractive environments for the owners and the adjacent owners' property and the neighborhood. And this document shall list penalties for violation of those common sense rules. I don't think too many people would disagree with me. Those are reasonable rules. The renter must sign acknowledgement they understand and have been exposed to these rules and regulations. So a copy of the signed acknowledgement statement shall be maintained on the property. I think, Councilperson Freer said, we designed this so that it's pretty much self-regulating. The relationship we want between the rentor and the rentee stays with them. And hopefully, they can keep peace with their neighbors at the same time. But if they don't, what rules and regulations were broken? Because we also want to have a contact, and I'll get to that in a minute. So we go on to explain that those rules and regulations shall address the prohibition of the following behaviors: fighting, violence, tumultuous, threatening behavior, unreasonable noise, abusive or obscene language or gestures in public. Quiet hours for the purpose of the law shall be between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. and shall be maintained by all rental occupants and visitors to the rental property. Maximum occupancy for short-term rental shall be 2 people per bedroom plus 2. For example, a short-term rental with 3 bedrooms is allowed 8 occupants. Contact person, which is Article 4 of the proposed law. The short-term rental owner must provide all owners of properties adjacent to the short-term rental with the name, address, and telephone number of a contact person or entity, if it's a firm. And such contact person or entity must be able to address any complaint received regarding the short-term rental within 1 hour of receiving the complaint. The contact person or entity must document all complaints and responses and submit them to the town within 24 hours. A copy of the contact person or entity name, address, phone number shall be maintained on the property and made immediately available upon request from law enforcement officers or town building and codes personnel. And then it gets into penalties. Okay? So that's the meat, not much more, not much less, of what we're proposing in our short-term rental. We originally started talking about fees and permits and on-site inspections. We decided not to go there. You didn't see any fees. You didn't see any on-site inspections, only when there's a problem. And some people, I don't like the inspection. Listen, it's only when there's a problem. And if there's a problem and you didn't take care of it, then we'll get involved. But if you can take care of it, you are the owner of the property. Fine, good. So, you know, this is keeping it simple. Right, Harrison? So, any thoughts on behalf of town board members before I open the public hearing on this proposed law?
I think you said it, Richard.
Okay. Rose, we do have a comment from one emailer.
Yes.
Would you please read that into the record?
Yes, we received written correspondence from Peg Marker today, May 18th. It says, "We are writing to express our objection to the proposed new Chapter 115 short-term rentals, which is to be presented at a public meeting this evening, May 18th, 2020. We'd be affected by the change because we rent out our Cleverdale home, summer only, to tenants who've been with us for at least 15 years. Firstly, we do not know how you can possibly consider this a public meeting when the public truly cannot attend. This seems very unfair on its face. Secondly, the timing is just plain awful. Not only does it come at a time when both landlords and tenants alike are still trying to figure out how rentals will work in the middle of a pandemic, but that aside, it's also coming exactly 1 week before Memorial Day, a time that's always been thought of as the beginning of summer rental season. At this point in time, 2020 summer rents and leases have been long ago negotiated and signed by both landlords and tenants. And this change, if it goes into effect immediately, would require all parties to go back to the drawing board, rewrite the leases, and possibly make adjustments to the rents to accommodate the additional paperwork and just plain hassle created by the proposal. Please consider tabling this issue for now and reopen it at a time in the future when you can conduct a truly public hearing to give those people affected a chance to express their opinion in person. Seriously, both landlords and tenants have enough to deal with right now without having to deal with the last minute change in rental conditions and terms. Not to mention what this will do to the local economy, as visitors to the area will find fewer and fewer homeowners willing to rent out their space. Peg and John Worker."
All right, thank you, Rose. So the public is going to be able to convey their ideas about this matter, if you so choose, in 3 ways. And I want to do them in this order. We do have people present who may wish to have something to say about the short-term rental law being proposed. I will give them the opportunity to do that. There is a microphone. There is cleaning wipes. If you do touch something, clean it up on retreating. Otherwise, if you come up and speak at the podium, that's why I set up the podium, you can go and speak and not really touch anything. You're gonna be fine, we're gonna be fine. If you're more comfortable with a mask, feel free, but we are keeping our social distancing for everyone here. But that is your comfort level. Second, I want to do call-ins. When I'm done with the on-site public, we'll allow call-ins. I will announce that time and I will repeat the phone number. And we'll give the call-ins an opportunity. Third, those people who are watching this evening on Zoom, there is an indicator for you to tell me if you're interested in speaking, and I will give you that opportunity. But I want to do that in this order. So first of all, the on-site people. Second will be the call-ins. And third, we'll do the Zoom. Okay? And then we'll see how the town board feels about matters after we conclude the public hearing using those opportunities. Okay, so first, on-site. Is there anyone current here today that would like to speak to the town board for or against, share your thoughts about the proposed short-term rental law? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Dobkowski. Am I too muffled with the mask? Is everybody hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the board for addressing this issue and coming up with stage one rules that we're looking to, kind of get this handled as it becomes more and more of an issue. I just wanted to share that my personal experience with the short-term rentals. About 7 years ago, my husband and I bought a house in a quiet residential neighborhood on a dead-end private road with one house beyond us. We researched the neighborhoods. I checked the sex offender registry because I have children and I get a little crazed with that. But I want to keep my kids safe. So we were happy with the neighborhood. We purchased this home. We've been living there 7 years. We had also looked at some more heavily populated tourist areas and felt more comfortable up over by the West Mountain Ski Center. So that's where we chose to live, where it was more isolated. Our neighbors are spread out, but we're friendly, we look out for each other. However, back in September, the house next door was purchased by a gentleman under his LLC to add to his portfolio of investment properties and resorts. And he's been operating it as an Airbnb since December of 2019. I'll just give you a brief rundown of what we've gone through in those 5 short months, 3 of which were basically winter, 2 which were basically quarantine. December, we had guests vomiting off the deck. Cars have been speeding up and down our dirt road, whipping through our driveway when they're lost, trying to find the rental house. Cars have been blocking the entrance to our private dirt road, unsure of where the rental is. Since St. Patrick's Day, from St. Patrick's Day, the 17th of March to the 27th of March, there were 4 different groups who came and went, 3 or 4 cars a pop, cars from Vermont, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey. While we were isolating ourselves, we were very cognizant of people coming from various states not staying in quarantine. For the 4th group, on the 27th, they were playing very, very loud music and very loud voices. It sounded like a big party going on. Had it been a neighbor who I knew, I would have knocked on the door, particularly if it weren't time of quarantine. But I did not know who these people were. I didn't know what the situation was. It sounded like a large party. Long story short, my husband sent a text to the owner at 11:30 at night, didn't hear back. Sent a text at 2 a.m., didn't hear back, the music continued. My 6-year-old came up, that's 2 a.m., to ask what the music was. 2:30, my husband called the owner, did not have a response. 3 o'clock, called Airbnb. Then we proceeded to hear acts of intercourse outside through our bedroom window, which was closed. Finally, the owner texted after being contacted by Airbnb, and he was over in about half an hour and knocked on the door. We could hear him from our bedroom. And he got them to stop with the music, but the voices continued past 4 a.m. The owner admitted to us this should not happen a single time, and it wasn't acceptable. So that situation went to, was behind us, but we lost our night's sleep. He told us that was the last group coming until May because of the pandemic. However, in April, a car arrived from Florida. A woman, a few days later, was walking her dog on my property, which I co-own with the owner of the property, the Airbnb. My husband just asked her nicely to put the dog on a leash because we're trying to keep him isolated with a lung disease that he has, and we didn't want the dog coming over onto our solely owned property. She responded very rudely, and as you mentioned, there are rude people, unfortunately. A week later, a car from Ohio showed up. And then one of the few nice days we had in April, I had my kids outside, and I sat in the hammock, was reading a book. My kids went in, the woman starts walking again on this piece of property that we co-own. In the interim, the owner had texted us because the woman complained that my husband asked her to leash her dog. He texted, my husband said there were signs up in the house, which the woman ignored, and she knew she wasn't supposed to walk on the road. So I'm there in my hammock, it was April 23rd. I asked her, I said, ma'am, could you please put your dog on a leash? She proceeded to start yelling at me. I said, ma'am, I'm just asking you to put the dog on a leash. So I was left to police and monitor the situation. My kids came out, she started cursing me out, called me a hoe bag. I felt extremely threatened. She then charged my husband and I. My husband had then come out after hearing all the yelling. And she charged onto our driveway and said she's paying enough, she can go wherever she wants. So the owner did show up within 20 minutes. I called him immediately. And I have to say, he's been very responsive. He's a super host on Airbnb. He's spoken with us, he's been in communication. The problem is he can't control who comes and rents his properties. These are people off a website. He can be the greatest host. He's not policing what's going on. He can post signs, but we know people ignore signs. Anyway, this woman, after having cursed me out, she was there for another 10 days. And I finally let my kids play outside, but I was very cautious, making sure the woman wasn't there. And I heard her car engine start. My kids were on my front porch, my 6 and 11-year-old. I told my boys, I said, guys, I'm just gonna step inside because I don't want there to be any kind of a situation. So they're on the porch, I go inside, my boys come running in with eyes like dinner plates. My 11-year-old said, Mom, she gave us the finger. So she gave my 6 and 11-year-old boys the finger. And we're living in the woods on a dead-end road. And I mean, what recourse as a homeowner do I have? We were basically, I felt imprisoned. I couldn't let my kids play on their swing set without breathing down their neck. Anyway, so that was that situation. Next group was fine. But there are 3 major issues that I think need to be addressed. Number 1 is the safety of children in these neighborhoods. I only can speak to the Airbnb platform because that's all I've really dealt with. But when a person makes a reservation through Airbnb, that person cannot be a sex offender or a felon, is my understanding. But the house next door to me can have up to 10 people. So the 9 other individuals who did not click the reservation on the internet, there's no registration that these people have. And that makes me very concerned as a parent. I don't know who's coming and going, and whoever's coming and going is changing every 2-3 days, in this case of the nasty lady, a month. And with the quiet hour situation, my kids go to bed fairly early. So I would request personally that if we were gonna have quiet hours, they would start at 8 p.m. during the school year. People on vacation tend to be a little more boisterous in my experience. So an 8 p.m. quiet time, especially in a quiet neighborhood, would be helpful. And also in, Airbnbs in North America have had over 70 shootings in the last 12 months. That's just about, believe that's more than what there was in 2018 in schools, and we look at everything that's been done in schools to protect children from this, serious issue. But there's really no way to monitor who's coming and going. And you buy a home in a neighborhood and, you control whatever factors you can, but when there's a constant rotation of strangers, you can't let your kids just play in the yard without being concerned. So that's issue one, the safety of the kids. Issue two is the loss of privacy. If there were a designated area within the town of Queensberry that people could agree short-term rentals could, be a possibility, I think that would be, a reasonable thing. Or, if people wanted to rent out a bedroom in their home, at least they're there supervising. They can advise people, don't do a turnaround here, pick up after your dog, so that the actual neighbors don't have to police. And then the third issue, when we moved into the neighborhood, I checked with zoning because I'm a licensed massage therapist. I asked about running a business from my home, and I was told, as long as you didn't have signage, it was kind of okay as long as you didn't disturb the neighbors. And I opted not to do that because I didn't want to inconvenience my neighbors. And I only would have had, 3 or 4 cars a day maximum. But this is a business that's running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and it seems to have gotten through the residency loophole. And I think, that needs to be addressed. Either find a way to control all businesses, or, allow all businesses to operate in residential areas. If we're gonna allow short-term rentals to do that, I think we need to allow everybody else to do it as well. And I do not think that should be the case, but if there were a way to limit the areas, or at least give homeowners a break for a couple months, where homes were not being rotated constantly, I think that would be, something that would make it more reasonable for the neighbors, not constantly being worried when you hear a car come down. So,
Jennifer,
yes,
does that LLC that's renting the property next to you have a set of rules and regulations that the renters are exposed to?
yes, there are rules posted on the business website, the Airbnb website. The owner has told us that he has signs throughout the interior of the house. I believe there's a sign on the exterior of his house as well. I haven't approached to see what that says, but if you go on his business listing, he has, I have to say, he's been updating things. He says no parties, he says, no this, no that. So he has been updating them, but it's a lot to read, and people don't follow rules. So,
All right, well, what we're proposing, is it going to be better than what we have now?
absolutely, yes.
So, and the other thing is that that person that you contact with the problem has to be on the site within 1 hour. Now, the penalties are $950 per incident. So that should have a little bit of a bite with this individual and make sure that they respond more efficiently to your concerns.
I agree,
And I think
absolutely.
all your concerns are legitimate.
Mhm.
The other thing too is that, we start off with a law and then we amend it and mold it as we start to see situations. So you made some suggestions. I just want to tell you that those suggestions were duly noted.
Thank you.
And let me ask any town board members if you have any questions for Jennifer.
No, but again, very good afterthought in terms of what you saw in our law and adding some of those, your thoughts and ideas of what you experienced will help us in the long run.
Thank you. And if I could just add, in terms of the safety issue, I think there has to be something in place when, particularly if a child is harassed, to have an immediate eviction and a very substantial fine or penalty for the homeowner as well as the resident guest.
And I don't blame you for your concern. if I had kids next to a short-term rental, I would be very concerned too.
Yes, I am,
I
thank you.
understand.
So John, my comment is that I don't believe we have anything in this dealing with pets, but we'll have to circle back and see what our broader pet policy is. And then clearly, there's, threatening is already covered, whether you're a short-term one or not. So
It's like
we'll have to balance that.
it's a property transfer law too. How many times have we amended that since we first adopted it? We've amended it 3 or 4 or 5 times. Yeah, so, what we have can be improved, but, the question comes, should we start with something?
Yeah.
Well, no, because we have a leash law and we have a, you have to pick up your dog law. It's already there.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
So-
We can reference it maybe,
We
but
don't have a leash law.
Sure we do.
No, our dog control law says that the dog must be under control by the owner at all times. That's what it says.
well, that's something for us, I think, to discuss, whether we need it specifically, something about pets in here or not. You bring up a good point.
Park and Rec have adopted some rules. It's not a town law.
I guess I read it somewhere
I
where
mean, you probably did with the Rush Pond Park and things like that. Dogs have to be leashed.
I thought it was
So
so.
that's a Park and Rec rule.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you very much.
Thank you all
All
very
right,
much.
thank you,
I
Judge.
appreciate it.
All right, anybody else on site like to comment to this, please indicate your interest in doing so. All right, seeing no further on-site public, let's move to the call-in. If you have a thought that you'd like to share with the town board, you may now call in. The number is area code 518-761-8225. Hello, I see George Pencil, come up.
That's me.
All right, Mr. Pencil, share your thoughts with the town board on our short-term rental law.
Well, I'm really in favor of public safety. I'm in favor of, can I go now?
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're being recorded.
I'm very much in favor of public safety. I think that, we have laws in place and code in place, and I would say that, yes, all renters should meet those standards, and we should be making sure that's going on. But I feel like a lot of what's in here are laws that are rules that should apply to everybody. And it's not applying to everybody. I mean, I live on Assembly Point, and Mr. Tony Metzier knows very well about Assembly Point and how narrow the roads are. And year-round residents and seasonal residents that aren't renting their homes are breaking these rules like crazy. Like on North Wing, there's a house that has cars all over the place on the street, and garbage disposals on the opposite side of the street, so you could barely get through North Lane half the time. And then when we talk about behavior of people, people have to obey the laws and be respectful of other people. We all know that. And to think that a person who rents a place is responsible for the actions of other people and needs to be available 1 hour from the point in time there's a complaint, who's going to enforce these rules? Really? Who's going to say, this really happened? Who's going to be enforcing this? Well, these are a lot of what I just heard in favor of these types of rules were complaints that I would have called the cops many times over if stuff like this was going on near my house, whether it's a rental or whatever it is. So some regulations. But I think we're going overboard when we're creating neighbors as cops. And now we're gonna send them out, and they're gonna say, okay, you're gonna police this. And the neighbors are gonna call, and the neighbors be saying this happened or that happened. And who's gonna prove this stuff? Who's gonna actually be behind it? I don't think we have the enforcement capabilities for this. And I don't really believe that. I think we should be calling the police when there's cases. That's what we take taxes for. Police protection. So, I'm gonna leave you with this. I believe in public safety. I believe that we're in extreme times right now with the virus, that we have to protect people. There may be some regulations we need, but I think we're getting overboard talking about the behavioral type stuff that you've got in this. And I'd like to see you look at this and make some changes here. Thank you.
Mr. Pencil, could you wait and see if any town board member has a question for you? Anybody?
Sure.
All right.
So, John,
Yes.
ask him, if 1 hour's not good, what would he be satisfied with for a response time?
Councilperson Freer wants to know that if 1 hour of response time is not sufficient, what do you suggest? Mr. Pencil? All right.
I really don't believe that the tenant has responsibility for poor behavior of other people in the world. Those people are responsible for their own behaviors. And therefore, the public law comes into effect. If you think we need to have quiet hours, it applies to everybody. Don't on the way. In Sandy Bay, we're having people non-social distancing in boats and rafting on Saturdays now with loud music being played all afternoon. Whether you like it or not, you're going to be listening to it because it's been taking place for the past month. So, I think this activity is not being created by tenants. This is activity of year-round residents here. I mean, it's ridiculous. And in fact, I even saw patrol boats in there watching people rafting 2 weekends ago, and not social distancing. So, oh, I'm a resident here, and I'm being told that, we rent a property in Rockford, but, how often that we have to tolerate fireworks going off at 2 o'clock in the morning and all that stuff going on. I mean, it isn't renters, it's year-round residents shooting stuff up in the air. And so, who's gonna call? Where are you going? Who's gonna be there for us when it's not somebody renting a house? I mean, it's ridiculous to think that somebody shoots a firework up at a rental place, it's going to be any different than if it's somebody shoots one up at a private residence.
All right.
So I guess the answer to my question, the question is, I don't think that there's a timetable. I don't think these rules are worthy of being written. I think that if you're going to write rules, write them for everybody.
All right. Well, thank you for your thoughts. They're very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good day. Hello?
Oh, hello, John.
Hi, Susan.
Hello, and all the board members. This is Susan McLaurin, Lake Sunnyside.
Yes,
I
Susan.
would have come, however, I am in self-quarantine.
All right.
So my comment is that, of course, I'm for your short-term rental regulations because All citizens of the town of Queensberry should be able to live peacefully. We have children in our neighborhood, and as all of you know, I live next door to an Airbnb animal house. I've lost track of how many times the police have been called to this property. I think your regulations are very fair and very well thought out. And I think they need to be put in place as soon as possible, especially because of the pandemic. And if you choose to operate a business in a residential neighborhood, then there must be regulations. And I thank you all.
All right, thank you, Susan. Any questions on behalf of the town board for Susan? None? All right, thank you, Susan.
Thank you now.
All
Bye-bye.
right, bye-bye. Yes, Gary Whitehead?
Yes, this is Travis Whitehead. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, it comes up as Gary Whitehead.
Well, that's my name.
All right, Gary, go ahead.
My name is Gary Travis Whitehead, if you would
All right.
acknowledge that. So my question is, if you don't pre-register these properties, then it seems that you are going to rely on a complaint such as was just described by Ms. Kowski. And I'm wondering who she should contact at 2 a.m. in the morning, which is for you. You know, there seems to be better ways to do this, and that is to pre-register the homes. And every ordinance that I've looked at, and I've looked at quite a few, does have a registration, and usually a very nominal registration fee associated with it, something like $25, to get the ball rolling, get the names down there, the contact numbers, etc. And also along with that $25 registration fee is the establishment of a $100 fine if for every day that you're not registered that this happens. So I would think establishing something like that would at least avoid the first instance, which is probably going to be a complaint and probably be at an inopportune time. And so I would just suggest that you look at registering.
All right, thank you. We do, Councilperson Freer has a question for you, Mr. Whitehead.
Well, just a comment that we did consider that, and the whole notion of what our aim was in drafting this is to not punish the 95% of the people who do short-term rentals in our area, in our community, by having to go through this process of registration and payment. And so, yes, Travis, I am familiar with areas where this is a bigger problem, Lake Placid being sort of the area that we looked at closest, and we may end up there someday, but as a first step in that process, we didn't want to jeopardize the trust of the community that does this on a routine basis and don't want to go through the extra effort and cost of establishing a registration and a fee structure. So that's an explanation of how we got here, and some of the feedback that you heard at the beginning of the evening is sort of justification for why we didn't want to punish people who were doing things properly and in the community spirit.
Mr. Whitehead, could you hear Councilperson?
Yeah, I could hear that. Thank you very much. My only comment would be that for someone getting rental income, I would think that a $25 registration fee is not an inconvenience, and I do think it will eliminate that first problem, that first complaint. And I don't think I wouldn't want to go through what Ms. Bukowski just explained, or what some of the other ones I just heard explain. Fortunately, I'm not in a situation like that, but I would never want to be. But thank you for listening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else for the call in? 518-761-8225. Yes, Mr. Dabowski?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it short because my wife spoke. I just wanna thank Mr. Freer. He's been acting as our de facto, representation because in the seat that, has been abandoned. So I wanna thank him personally. He's been, very open in hearing our suggestions. And, you know, I gave him a list that maybe in the future it should be looked at, but I want to thank the board for taking this first step. And sometimes you have to put your finger in the hole of the dam before the big engineers come to do the big fix. So I'm kind of pleading with you guys, just please take that first step forward. Everyone has a lot of great suggestions on how to improve this bill, but you can't get it improved until it's passed first. So I just want to let you know, thank you to the town board for moving forward with it.
All right, Mr. Dabowski, I'm sorry. Your first name, if my memory serves me, is Tom?
James.
James, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any town board member have questions for James? All right, thank you for calling, James, and sharing your ideas. All right, anybody else? 761-8225, we're taking your thoughts on our proposed short-term rental law. All right, let's move to Zoom. I do have one person. No? That person just left. I see no one who is currently on Zoom are sharing any thoughts, or I don't see a hand up. Yes, Travis. Travis, do you want to talk again? With Tricia Freer. Tricia Freer. Tricia Freer, can you hear me?
You have to unmute now.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Tricia.
I stayed on the line because I wanted to see if we could make this work.
All right. And
Can you hear me?
yes, we hear you. Do you have any thoughts on the proposed short-term rental law?
I am in favor of this short-term rental law. We have been renting a property on the east side of Lake George for about 15 years, and this only makes the lease and the contract that we do send out to our renters enforceable, and it just gives me a sense that the community is behind people who do have to rent their homes for short term. My comments are geared more to the specifics in the law. And in your Article 3, Part A, you have a smoke detector in every bedroom, and I think that may have come from being a hotel has smoke detectors in every room. When you have a home, that to me seems a bit excessive, and I would like to see that put at a minimum of 2. Also, in Article 3, Part F, you have the number of vehicles as 1.5, and as it was brought up by a number of people who have properties on the east side of the lake, the roads there are very narrow, and parking along the side of the road causes first congestion. So my recommendation would be 1 vehicle per bedroom. It's written now as 1.5 per bedroom. I'm just going into the law's recommendations because I think this should go into effect. I think as Jim, who just was on, said, we have to start somewhere, and this is a good start. It's kind of like your transfer law. You started and you had public hearings, and it's not to penalize anyone. It's just to make the community better. And I totally agree on the maximum capacity, 2 over the bedrooms. And then, but I did feel in Article 4, your turnaround time was a little, kind of crunched, because I know that sometimes it's been very hard for a tenant to get a hold of me, when things are going right, or there's something that happens at the house in an hour. So I would say that you have to give the homeowner a little bit of leeway on that, because sometimes we just aren't there to get the phone call. But I agree with going forward with this law.
All right. Any questions from the town board for Mrs. Freer? All right, Trish, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. Travis?
Yes.
You were on Zoom indicating that you wanted to speak.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you could hear me because I haven't tried this mode before.
All right.
And I assume you are. And I would just like to echo what I heard the last two people say, and that is that this is a good start. And I hope that you do proceed with this.
Okay, thank you. All right, so if Tricia and Travis would put your hands down
Sure.
so that I know that. Okay. I don't see anybody else on Zoom wishing to speak. If you do, put your little hand up there. Okay.
Woman in the back, raised her hand.
Ma'am?
Yes. I just had a question.
You have to come up to the,
Yes.
identify yourself, please.
Susan Beadle.
Yes. Hi, my name is Sue Beadle, and I just had a question. Am I correct in that you are going to require the owner to notify neighbors if they're renting out the
Yes.
property on Airbnb?
Yes, the adjacent neighbors should know the contact person if there's a problem. Who will the contact person be? The neighbors have a right to have that information. And if they have a problem, they'll contact the person, and according to the way the law is written now, they have 1 hour to respond to the situation.
Right, all right, so, but I guess my question is, what is the adjacent property? Like where I live, the people live above me.
Well,
So they're not really adjacent to me because there's a green space between us.
Now, it'd be, we'd have to go to Dick Birch, and we'd have to go with the Greenwood.
Okay,
Oh,
yeah, because,
we'd have the three people around you.
yes, okay.
That's
that-
what we meant. Their
Yeah.
properties abut yours.
Because they have never contacted us that they are renting the property. And we've had the loud music, the loud voices, the fireworks in the dry summer.
Well, see, now they have to, if we adopt it.
Yes,
I
so
don't-
I would encourage you to support this bill because
Okay,
we need it.
all
All
right,
right, thanks.
thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right, call-ins, Zoom, present, anybody? I think we hit all the bases, all right. Thoughts on behalf of the town board, where we wanna go, anybody have any thoughts?
I think we've had our share of meetings talking about this. I think we've had this, now for a good year and a half, maybe close to 2, so I think the comments indicated that we should probably start with something, and this would be a good start.
Thank you, George. Harrison?
So, full disclosure, one of those persons was my wife. However, I am not associated with the property that she was addressing on Rockers. We live and own on 28 Garrison Road, and she is a minority owner of a property on Rockers, or East Lake, she said. So I just want to make that for the record. I have nothing to do with that rental property.
I think your comment about the fire alarms, I think our law just fires for rental property. I think mirrors the law, state law on the matter.
Well, I thought that you have to have a smoke detector in every bedroom. It's state code now.
Well, I don't think it's in every bedroom unless the code's changed.
I'm
It
pretty
was
sure it's every
one smoke detector on each floor, but it depended on the square footage of the thing. But again, I haven't built a house in a few years, so. But in any event, I think this does reflect, you know, smoke detectors just are not that expensive.
No, no, no.
So, I don't know. Tony, how do you feel about addressing this proposed law?
Oh, I'm absolutely for it. It's a great start. I want to go on record and say I absolutely disagree 100% with the letter that was sent in.
Okay.
We've never been so transparent and accessible ever in this town board. We have people in the audience, we have telephone, we have Zoom. So for somebody to say that, you know, how can you hold a public hearing when the public isn't present? Public's present in more than one way. You know, that folks that wrote that letter were from downstate, and that's exactly the reason we're doing this. Not to keep people from downstate, but to have them be held accountable for not being available when they need to be. So beyond that, I think that the comments were great, and I would love to see us move forward. And you know what? Like we just said before, we made 3 changes so far to the transfer law. It's a working document. It's a start.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree with what everybody said.
So the other question I had was timeline. Can you review what, if we approve it this evening, which it sounds like there may be, you know, interest in doing that. How does it, can somebody walk me through, I know you have to register, but what are, can address the lead time, John?
That was a good question, Councilman Freer. Mark, I see that you've unmuted yourself. Did you hear Harrison Freer's question?
I think I did. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
very loud and clear.
I think Councilman Freer was asking about the timeline for implementation of the law, if it's adopted, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's actually pretty simple. The local law takes effect as soon as it's, like all of our local laws, takes effect upon filing with the Secretary of State. Town clerk's usually very good about filing it right away, so we'll get a receipt. It should happen in a matter of days.
All right, thank you. Harrison, does that answer your question? All right. Thank you, Mark. Is there a motion, or close the public hearing? Is there a motion to adopt a local law to amend Queensbury Town Code by adding a new chapter 115 entitled short-term rentals?
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilperson Medevere, seconded by
I'll second.
Okay, can we have discussion?
Councilperson Ferone. Yes?
So I'd like to suggest that we amend the car parking to 1.25 per bedroom versus the 1.5 that we have in the law. The suggestion was one per bedroom, but I think 1.25 per bedroom is a good compromise. No.
But we're still rounding up, right?
Yep, still round up.
So help me with the math.
So 3 bedrooms. I think it still comes up pretty close to the same.
Yeah,
Harrison.
that's what I'm thinking. So if you're rounding up, it's gonna be the same number. We'd have to go to 1.
If you have a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom, you have 10 versus a lot less.
That's 1 extra.
Okay. That's fine.
Whatever. It's,
I'm fine with it 1.5. If it presents a problem, Harrison, and we'll amend it like we did and we can make it a more suitable law as we go forward.
Good.
I just think in order to make that effective, you really have to go down to 1 to 1.
Yeah.
I really do. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'd make that amendment if you would support it.
And we've gone all over with
Yeah,
this.
we really have.
And so we came up with this as being, we've been on
The
both sides,
I
up
think
and
one of the
down.
sticking points, if you remember.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to
Yeah.
have a discussion, so.
Yeah, no, that's fair, that's
And
fine.
let's see where it goes. Again, we're gonna make a lot of changes to this.
All right, so we're not amending it. There's been a motion to approve in a second. Roll call vote on this, please.
Councilperson Stroud,
Yes.
Medevere,
Yes.
Freer,
Yes?
and Fromm.
Yes.
Short-term rental, see? 4 years.
We do get things
Get it
done.
done.
Well, this goes back to the bi-weekly pay thing that
That's right.
All right, so that's it for public hearings. We now have resolutions. The town board has 11 resolutions before us tonight, and I will go through those 11 resolutions, explain them briefly, and if any member of the public, either on site or call in or Zoom, has any questions on any of the 11 resolutions that we have before us tonight, you're welcome to input that. If you have another town-related topic that you wish to talk about, this is not the time, but I will give you the opportunity to do that at the end of the meeting for generic, general town topics. This portion of the meeting, however, deals with just the 11 resolutions before us tonight. So I will explain them after Rose introduces them. 4.1, please, Rose.
This is a resolution supporting Glens Falls Hospital and endorsing its efforts to obtain reimbursement to offset costs related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right. This is in support of Glens Falls Hospital. It's a nonprofit institution. It provides essential healthcare services for our town, our area, our 4 surrounding, even 5 surrounding counties. They employ many people in the town of Queensbury and elsewhere, Warren, Washington, Hamilton, Essex. They've been experiencing major financial challenges due to insufficient federal and state reimbursement programs, declines of patient value. And Glens Falls and its vitality is important to the health of thousands of full-time residents living here in Queensbury, Lake George, and the North Country throughout the year. So Glens Falls Hospital has led a coordinated regional response to COVID-19 pandemic, treating 40 COVID-19 positive patients at the time this was written anyways, and setting up and administering community testing sites at the hospital and at Warren County Municipal Center, at which hundreds of people were tested, reactivating closed hospital units to accept expected surge of patients, converting anesthesia machines to ventilators, building a UVC sterilization room to sterilize N95 masks, putting 3D printers to work, making face shields, acquiring new laboratory equipment to allow rapid testing for COVID-19, providing constant community information and education about the pandemic, and investing more than $5 million in those efforts. And whereas the hospital set up telemedicine services to serve non-COVID-19 patients who could not visit the hospital and see the medical providers because of COVID-19 restrictions, and quickly begun conducting 1,200 telemedicine visits a week. And whereas the hospital was forced to bear a revenue loss of approximately $27 million because of the ban on elective surgeries, only recently lifted, while also bearing the actual costs of preparing for expected surge in COVID-19 patients after having already sustained operating losses of $1.6 million in January, $3 million in operating in February, and an estimated $6 million in March as a result of the financial pressures, forced to furlough more than 360, and as a result of financial pressure, was forced to furlough more than 360 employees. And whereas the hospital is an indispensable institution that is vitally important to the health, well-being, economy, and future of the town of Queensbury and North Country region, now therefore be it resolved that the town of Queensbury, on behalf of the residents, visitors, and taxpayers of the town of Queensbury, hereby expresses its support and sincere appreciation to Glens Falls Hospital, its physicians, nurses, and staff of dedicated employees, many of whom live in the town of Queensbury, and be it further resolved that the town of Queensbury hereby endorses Glens Falls Hospital's ongoing efforts to obtain federal and state reimbursement to offset the costs it has borne in connection with the COVID-19 pandemic and hereby employs the town's federal and state representatives to use their best efforts to secure federal and state funding to reimburse Glens Falls Hospital. And the last resolve, the town board authorizes and directs the town supervisor to send certified copies of this resolution to Governor Andrew Cuomo, Congressmember Elise Stefanik, Senators Charles Schumer and Kristen Gillibrand, and take such other and further actions as may be necessary to effectuate the terms of this resolution. 4.2,
Resolution authorizing establishment of Quaker Road Sewer Main Replacement Capital Project, Fund Number 231.
all right, this is part of the process, establishing capital project for replacing that line, the sewer line that we've had constant problems with. It's constantly been in the newspaper, you're aware of it. And this is just to establish a capital fund. 4.3,
Resolution authorizing Marshall and Sterling Upstate, Inc. to ensure the town of Queensbury's New York State Disability Income Replacement Insurance with Shelter Point Life Insurance Company.
all right, so Marshall and Sterling is the town's Queensbury general insurance agent, and as such solicited for quotations from insurers for the town's New York State disability coverage. And Marshall and Sterling is advising us that Shelter Point Life Insurance Company submitted the lowest responsible proposal. And that proposal is estimated to be $7,660, and it goes on to give the details of the coverage of that, such as employee count and so forth. So this is to approve what has been recommended to us by Marshall and Sterling for Shelter Point Life Insurance, and they're the lowest responsible proposal. 4.4,
Resolution approving memorandum of agreement between the town of Queensbury and the town of Queensbury Unit of Civil Service Employees Associations, Inc., CSEA.
all right. We have an opportunity here to decrease the amount of increase. The proposed health insurance for this year, which goes from July 1st to July 1st, is 10%. That's not unusual, but it's still high. So our labor attorney, Larry Pouchowitz, very familiar with the health network, came up with another plan. It's a slight change of network. It's an increase in deductibility, but the town will make the employees whole, will reimburse them. The union has agreed to this principle. The bottom line is, and I want to thank the union and our employees for agreeing to this, and I think the town board will tonight, but tonight we'll wait and see. This one act, and we are looking at doing other things, but this one act will reduce the increase from 10% to 6.6%. All right, at 10%, that's a $365,000 increase. Out. 6.6% is $241,000 increase. Still an ouch, but not much is better than ouch. There's about $40,000 in savings. The union has agreed to go along with us. If the town board does, we can expect 40,000 savings. But let me assure the town board, we're working on some other things for savings as well. But this is one step. 4.5.
Resolution setting public hearing on proposed local law to amend Chapter 179 zoning of Queensbury Town Code to revise Section 179-3-40, establishment of zoning districts, and Section 179-4-90, parking and loading regulations.
All right, we've been through this before, but the wrong law was attached. We were going to have a public hearing on this tonight, but the wrong law was attached to our resolution. It just no big deal. It was the wrong law. This is the right law, okay? What we want to do is we want to give some versatility to our enclosed shopping center zone. As you know, malls are dying. They need revitalization. We don't want to keep dragging them down with a zone and a law that worked 20 years ago. It's not working now. So one of the things that they have asked that we allow is a little bit of versatility in the enclosed shopping center zone. A versatility that would allow it to re-energize itself, to become a walking community, so to speak, to allow residential. Only 30% of the zone can be residential. 70% has to remain commercial according to this law. But we're also going to allow other uses besides that, and they include amusements, apartment houses, automobile service, banking, business service, car wash, boat sale, convenience stores, daycare, fast food establishment, health-related facilities, kennels, microbreweries, live theater, movie theater, museum, outdoor concert, place of worship, playground, photo stand, self-storage facility, tavern, TV radio station, veterinarian clinic, parking structures, recreation centers. We're adding a whole lot of uses that they can pick and choose and try and enliven this mall and make it a mini community. Make it like a Main Street. Make it a place where the people living there can go to see a movie, have a couple of beers and walk home. Go to the coffee house and have a chance at the open mic. I mean, a Main Street, a community within itself. And once that energizes, that too is going to energize other things to happen. And so hopefully, we've been working with the Pyramid Company and the Aviation Mall. They're happy with what we're proposing. We hope the community's happy with what we're proposing. We're hearing very strong support from this. And we will share that support with you at the public hearing meeting, which will be June 3rd. So, this resolution is only to set the public hearing for June 1st on this matter. So we will have the same setup. There'll be some people here, spaced out, social distancing, masks. We will have Peter Pape, and he's doing YouTube. And we have Danny in Store Tech, and we're doing Zoom. So we're doing everything possible to make these meetings as open as possible and yet safe as possible. All right. So June 1st, if the town board approves it, for the public hearing on the enclosed shopping center zone. 4.6.
Resolution authorizing advertisement for bids for construction of traffic signals at intersection of Bay and Quaker Roads in Glenwood Avenue and Quaker Road.
All right, this has been a long time in making. It was part of the Complete Streets Up. And we have signals that are failing, especially bad, according to Dave Dool, of the intersection of Bay Road and Quaker and Glenwood and Quaker. Those signals need to be replaced. So, working with Complete Street Concept, working with the public, we also want, at the same time, since we're going through the troubles, to modernize the signals. And that by no ways gets in the way of having, as you know, we're looking at developing a smart corridor where traffic will be measured, traffic will be tuned to where traffic is, and we were awarded a grant money to do a study on that. That's forthcoming. These signals will work with that system if we got that far. All right, and they make it pedestrian friendly. Right now, there are no pedestrian accommodations at Bay and Quaker, and Glenwood and Quaker. So, this resolution is only to go out to bid. Once we get the bids in, this town board will have another opportunity to say yay or nay, but this is just to go out to bid, see how much these two new reconstruction signalization systems are, as I've explained. 4.7,
Resolution authorizing increase in Hubby Pond Park Improvement Project number 146 and withdraw from Capital Reserve Fund number 61.
all right, so they're gonna withdraw from the reserve fund $9,000 to upgrade paver block around the main pavilion in Hubby Pond. Add an 8,000 90-foot level walkway on Glenwood Avenue. Add 5,000 install proper drainage under the Memorial Garden, and 8,000 contingency for that and the rest of the things they're doing at Hubby Pond Park. That's 4.7. 4.8.
Resolution approving audit of bills warrant of May 18th, 2021.
All right, with a run date of May 14th and a payment date of May 19th, totaling $712,975.98. 4.9.
Resolution authorizing settlement agreement and mutual release with Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation, DBA National Grid, concerning street lighting service billings.
All right, well, we asked Cost Control Associates to give us an inventory of all our streetlights. Which ones do we own? Which ones do National Grid own? What kind are they? What wattage are they? And so forth. And so they submitted proposals, and they got the proposal. And then they said, you know what, while we're doing all this, why don't we find out, we'll check it and make sure they're charging you accurately. Are they charging you for poles that you own? Are they charging you for 500 watts when it's only 150? I said, yeah. So they did. And they had found National Grid owes us $14,695.86. Hooray. This is approving acknowledgement of that. 410.
Resolution ratifying adoption of revised Town of Queensbury COVID-19 pandemic response plan.
All right, every 2 weeks, we're working on it, improving it, updating it, changing with changing times, making it better. And this is just the adoption of the revised Town of Queensbury COVID-19 pandemic plan, which I think is about 35 pages long now. Here it is. 35. All right, 411.
Resolution authorizing hiring of temporary seasonal laborers to work at town cemeteries.
All right, we have 11 cemeteries. They need mowing. And the superintendent of cemeteries is here, if you have any questions. But she would like to hire Kyle Miller, Dakota Swan, and Michael Brunel as temporary seasonal laborers to work for the cemetery department, seasonal, from the middle of May, starting. And there are some with familial relationships that must be disclosed. Michael Brunel, am I saying it right? Michael Brunel is the son of cemetery laborer Michael Brunel. It's spelled differently. M-Y-K-A-L. All right, so that has to be disclosed. So those are the 11 resolutions before the town board tonight. Before I open it to the public hearing, any thoughts on the town board?
Just to say that the light on Bay Road that are on Quaker that we're talking about in Glenwood and Hubby Pond, I'm glad that Steve was able to sort of incorporate that, so we'll have pedestrian-friendly access to the park easier from north, and hopefully that will end the sort of amendment that he did there. So I think those two are really synergistic in terms of, and I thank those guys for working through that.
Yeah. And I saw that you were working with Steve on that. Okay, good. Anything else? All right, I'll open it to the public. Any member of the public present, and I'm going to do the same format. Public present, then call-ins, and then Zoom. So right now, public present. None of the public present is showing an interest in discussing any of the resolutions before us tonight. All right, call-ins. All right, any call-ins? And the number is 761-8225. Call-ins on any of the 11 resolutions before the town board tonight. Do you have any comments, thoughts? Call in. 761-8225. Quiet, isn't it? Okay, while we're waiting for call-ins, the town of Queensbury did receive another 2,000 maps. They come in packages of 5. And so if you're interested, each of the town board members are gonna take some so that they can distribute to people that call them, and they do call them. Do you have any maps? And they will have some, they have some now. All right, nobody's calling in. How about on Zoom? Raise your little hand on Zoom. Nobody's raising their little hand.
You got this down there, boss.
All right, well, we're trying to cover all the bases. All right. Having no public opinion on at least the 11 resolutions before us tonight, are there any resolution that any of the town board would like to have pulled for roll call for whatever reason?
Well, 4.1, while I support that, and I thank the board for their consideration on that, I do sit on the Glens Falls Hospital Board of Governors. I'm the secretary of the board. I support it, but I don't know if I should recuse myself from
Are you
voting.
making any money on it?
I am not. That is a volunteer
I
board.
believe it costs you money to do your community services. No, I think Mark Shatner would speak up if he would think that your vote on this was improper.
Mark Schaffner is about to speak up. I think the disclosure is extremely appropriate, and I think recusal is not necessary.
Not necessary.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark.
4.4.
4.4.
Does not address any contracts moving forward this time or renewals. It is my employer. I don't work for employee benefits, but our employer administers those benefits. So I would prefer to recuse myself.
Okay. All right, so Tony's gonna recuse himself because his employer does administer what's involved with resolution 4.4. Any other things? So 4.4 is gonna be a roll call vote. And it's the only one, right? All right. Would you do 4.4 first, Rose?
Yes.
Resolution approving memorandum of agreement between the town of Queensbury and the town of Queensbury Unit of Civil Service Employees Association, or the CSEA, in a manner that I had described.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councilman Ferrone, Councilperson Ferrone, seconded
Second.
by
I'll second.
Councilperson Freer. A roll call vote on 4.4, please, Rose?
Councilperson Stroud,
Yes?
Medivir abstained,
Abstain.
Freer,
Yes.
and Perone.
Yes.
All right, resolution passes. The remaining resolutions, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.9, 4.10, and 4.11. Motion to put those forward for approval. Moved by Councilperson Medivir, seconded by Councilperson Freer. Roll call vote on the remaining resolutions, please, Rose?
Councilperson Medivir.
Yes.
Freer,
Yes.
Perone,
Yes.
and Stroud.
Yeah. All right, the remaining resolutions pass. Any correspondence?
No correspondence.
Privilege of the floor. Any member of the public, we'll do it the same format. I'll do on-site, then call-ins, and then Zoom. Anybody present wish to speak to the board about any town issue? None present. Call-in. Any call-ins? Wish to speak to the town board about any town issue? 761-8225, area code 518-761-8225. no call-ins, how about Zoom? All right, no Zoom. Okay, let's go to town board discussions. George, let's start with you tonight.
Okay, thank you. Well, once again, I want to thank the board for considering the resolution in support of the hospital. Some people might think, well, gee, why do we have to pass a resolution to support the hospital? It's been in the news that, the federal government has put a number of programs out there, putting out millions, billions of dollars, and some of those funds did go to hospitals. Unfortunately, Glens Falls Hospital did not get much of anything out of those millions and billions of dollars. I think there was one that we got, I think, was $6 million from, and that maybe helps us cover one payroll. But outside of that, there are a lot of hospitals and healthcare organizations that got tens of millions of dollars. And unfortunately, we did not meet the criteria for those. So we're asking for these resolutions, and there was also a resolution at the county board last Friday supporting this as well. So I thank them as well, and our at-large county supervisors that represent Queensbury. But that's why we're going about doing this, so appreciate that. And the other thing, talking about Warren County, and I know we've mentioned that here before too, is I think the county passed a resolution for a $5 million cut in an austerity budget at the county. And again, I think we as the town need to think along those lines as well. I mean, I think we've got some projections of what we might not get in terms of sales tax and that, but I think we should prepare ourselves in case it's more than we think it's going to be.
Yeah, yeah. You're right. And thank you for being on the board for the hospital and your community commitment. You have a long history of that, George.
Yeah, thank you.
And so do you.
So, I guess, hope for the best and plan for the worst when it comes to the board budgeting. I totally agree. I'd like to thank the Highway Department for the great job they're doing picking up the extended lawn care products. Dave Dool and his team have done a wonderful job with the brush, and I commend them. I'd like to find a way to compost or recycle, or and there's people looking at that, so I hope that gets back on our to-do list. For those who aren't aware, the reason I'm wearing a mask is I'm trying to follow the latest guidance from the state when you've been suspected or encountered somebody that has tested positive for COVID-19. And the 3 steps involved in enhanced protection is to wear a mask when you're in public for the entire time that I'm either at work. The second is to get temperature taken, which I will take care of. And then the first actually is to make people aware that you're a suspect so that people can be extra cautious. So it's not because I'm trying to sell more Coca-Cola with my mask, but I do also want to continue to stress that when you're out in public and you can't maintain social distancing, that it's in everyone's best interest, yours, your neighbors, your family, the community, to be wearing a mask. I drove by a public, quasi-public activity yesterday, and there were 5 or 6 guys standing around, not social distancing as I could tell from the car. I don't think they were all the same family, and nobody was wearing a mask. So I'm sort of really stressing that it's in everybody's short-term and long-term interest to be wearing a mask when you can't maintain social distancing out in public. That's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Harrison. Tony?
We had a little bit of Facebook criticism that, now is a great time to be paving our roads, and they weren't getting done. I had spoken to Dave Dool about this, ironically enough, the same day that we were being criticized, and the truth be told, the local pit to get our
Asphalt
asphalt
plant
was
was
not
closed.
open. And Dave had actually, investigated driving down to Saratoga to get asphalt. But it was so cost ineffective, he decided not to. So, not even 3 days later, they opened up the local pit, and the guys were out there filling the potholes. I spoke to a few of them as they were doing it and asked where they got their asphalt, and they said that they just opened the pit. I did reach out to the gentleman who made the comment. He was thrilled to death. He didn't understand, the whole idea of not having a local pit open, so he was thrilled to death. And they still have to fill in one pothole on Jacobsville that my car unfortunately fell into the other day, and I thought I was gonna have it towed out. But,
Were they behind schedule this year?
Oh,
you know? Oh, they were, okay, yeah.
big time. But I don't know, for whatever reason, they were not opening the pit, so they are behind. But they're out there now, full force. So you made a comment about the brush, they're doing a great job there. I know they've been very helpful to elderly residents, and these guys are working hard, back to work. Speaking of back to work, we're starting to open up. Let's just do this very smartly, so we don't have to start closing things again. So we talk about the mask. If I ever catch anybody throwing gloves in the parking lot, so help me God, it's not going to be pretty, but let's just do this smart, please.
All right, thank you, Tony. Yeah, I have just a few things. One is, we had this request in Park and Rec. Steve passed it on to me from Jason Thompson. And Jason Thompson says, hey, the people using the Rush Pond Trail are curious about the old car wreck and what's the story behind it there. So I typed out an answer. The car, and there's two. The public doesn't know about the one that's down close to the shore of Little Rush Pond. It looks like a little rusted out for show, but at this point it's hard to tell. In any event, they're talking about the one up closer to the trail that is quite visible from those passing by. And I said, that's an outdoor museum. An artifact that tells the story of that immediate area. In the mid-60s, the Warren County Floyd Bennett Airfield's presence, and that airfield dated back to 1919, and when I was going to school at Queensbury in the 60s, the airfield was still being used by an occasional private pilot, and I used to see them land and take off. The airport was active. We, being teenagers, used the runways for other things, okay? We were young men in our mid-teens, and we all owned our own cars. Those were different days, okay? This is the early 60s. I was 14, I had my own car. It wasn't unusual for us in junior high and the beginning of high school to own our own cars. Queensbury was basically a pastoral world then. So both of the airport runways, although the east-west was favored, was used for drag racing and learning how to drive and a lot of other things. The second most popular activity was going into the fire break roads and bouncing up and down like crazy puppets. But that was fun. And, Rush Pond Trail follows one of those fire break roads. And then possibly due to mechanic failure, but more likely from driver incompetence, the occasional vehicle went errant. And such appears to be the case for this Pontiac, or some people say Buick. They were the same basic car except for the ornamentation, and that's been mostly gone. And it's driving. I'm not aware of any serious injuries, thank goodness, as a result of these farm boy activities. And yes, I was right there, I lived at the top of Miller Hill. This is before the Northway, Route 9 was the major north-south route. We had horses, we had chickens, we had a farm. It's now the Sleep Inn, it's other things now. It's now Walmart. But that's where I grew up. All right, I'm not aware of any serious injuries as a result of these farm activities. In days prior to current artificial electronic social life, this was our fly. And folks asked me if that was my car. No, it wasn't. I owned a 52 baby blue Chevy Coupe, 3 on the column, straight line 6. And when I was 14, I rebuilt the carburetor. I was working on cars when I was 12. Those were the days when you did that kind of thing, and the cars were basic enough to do those kind of things. Today's cars are quite different. In any event, I sold my car, I'm not going to mention the name, he's still around, for $35. He gave me 15, and he says, I'll give you the other 20 next week. He never gave me the 20, he still owes me the 20. Now, accounting for inflation, I want you to know, I'm going to say his initials, BS. I'm not going to say his last name, Barry. It's now $167, okay, with inflation, I just want you to know. He did overturn my car on the roof from taking, I heard, too sharp of a turn on the runway. So my car went sliding down the runway onto it, he came out of it okay, I'm just was poor because of the whole thing. Now, so when I'm asked, well, why that 1950s crashed in the woods old car wasn't removed, I say that's to keep it as a museum piece so that you folks ask me about its history and I get a chance to tell them. So Steve and Tony both like that story. All right, transfer stations are now open full-time. Ridge Road, 7:45 to 3:30, except on Saturdays, and they're open Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Saturday, they're only open till 3. Luzerne Road is Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, 7:45 to 3:30. The pickups are being done. They're going to finish up Ward 2 this week and then start Ward 1 maybe this week or next week.
No, they already started Ward 1.
All right, well, the date was in today, telling me they're going to finish up Ward 2, and that some crews have already started on Ward 1. Okay. The census. You folks are doing a great job of going online and doing your census thing. Or you've got it in the mail, you filled it out and sent it in. It's a whole lot easier to do it online if you're connected. And Queensbury is something like 62% now. That is fantastic. Keep up the good work, thank you. And like I said, we do have more masks. If you want some, just call the town. What we'll do is, you can call your ward representative and they'll make arrangements to get your mask to you. Or if you call the town and tell us how many you want, a reasonable number for whatever your situation is, and maybe your older parents that are living with you, whatever the case. We'll set them out and you just pick them up. Just, we'll set them out at a time when it's convenient for you to pick them up. Just give us a call. All right, that's it for me, guys. Anything else?
Hydrant flushing is still going on.
Hydro flushing is still going on. If your water looks a little discolored, it's because we are flushing the hydrants. Thank you, George. Anything else, Will? All right. I'd like to thank our folks who are attending. Rose Mellon, thank you, Deputy Town Clerk. Our Town Council, Mark Shackner.
Thank you, have a good night, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. Joe Barlow, Look TV, thank you. Peter Pape, Pape Productions, thank you. Danny Griffin from Stored Tech, thank you. And we'd like to thank our sponsor for Look TV, Stored Tech, and I think Westfall's National as well as others, thank you for sponsoring the town board meeting. Unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councilman Medevere, seconded by Councilperson Freer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, folks, thank you.